What's up, everyone? Welcome to The Balance Show. We believe that the key to life is balance.
Finding the balance between discipline and freedom, ambition and contentment. The perfect balance is unique to each individual.
We are your hosts, Taylor, Chloe, and Steve, and we're here to help you find your balance.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Balance Show. Today it is myself, Taylor, and my sister, Chloe.
Hello.
And today we put together a really cool podcast for you guys that we've been working on for quite some time now. And it is 25 steps on how to start your business.
So we kind of did this framework off of our experience and what we did over the past 2 years to bring Balance Athletica to where it is today. These are, like we said, 25 steps, and if we could just go back in time and tell ourselves this 2 years ago, I think we would have been a little bit better off. But hindsight is 2020.
Right. And so if you guys want to take notes or anything like that, I kind of wish that we would have had this layout back then. Just simple 25 steps to take. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get to it.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So first one we have, very, very important. It's going to be the backbone of your business. It is to determine your why and company cornerstones.
So you want to establish not just what product or service you're going to bring to the market, but more importantly, why are you going to do that? What needs are you going to fill? What problems are you going to solve? And why are you passionate about doing that? If that's the source of all of your work, it resonates differently with people.
So kind of how we started Balance and envisioned Balance was based off of a few concepts that we saw were missing in the market. So I don't know how long you guys have been following my journey, but you know that I've been in the fitness industry for quite some time. So we have me being with companies, clothing lines that I didn't think really had the quality we were looking for in clothing that we wanted to wear, me and Chloe. Mm-hmm. And then for Chloe, a big thing for her
was just a lack of diversity in the fitness clothing apparel lines. I felt like not only was there a lack of diversity, both, in backgrounds, but also in body shapes and sizes. And there's such a huge demographic of people, and especially women, who feel like there's no clothing that's designed for them. So I wanted to design clothes for everybody, stuff that would be flattering on the extra small just as much as the extra, extra large. That was something that I was really passionate about. And so we all kind of brought our separate passions to the table and decided, okay, this is what we want to build our company on.
Right. And like we said, there wasn't really at the time. We started Balance a year and a half ago now, maybe 2 years. But we started, and there was really no clothing line that was all-inclusive. And if they did say they were all-inclusive, it still didn't look good on the sizes that were being kind of excluded. So that was one of our big things. And like when we sample our clothes too, we have me as a small, Chloe as a medium, we have a large and extra large, all try on these things to make sure that it truly does look good on everyone. And then we make tweaks from there. So finding your why, that was a very long-winded answer, but as you can see, it should be a long answer if it is a huge part of your company.
Yeah, it's the most important thing. It's where your passion lies, and people see that. If they see that you're trying to sell them something that has no mission or real deep-seated value behind it, that's the thing. There's 1,000 people out there doing exactly what you want to do. So how are you going to set yourself apart? And if you come from a place of, your values versus, oh, well, I have the best product and I'm going to sell it to you.
So it can't be all about making money. If you go into starting your own business with, oh, I want to be a millionaire, it's not. It's only going to get you so far to where at the end of the day, you're not going to feel fulfilled and you're not going to have that passion and drive to keep going. So you really do have to find that why and do that first and foremost.
Totally. Step number 2 is to choose your partners carefully. So what you want to look for in your business partners, if you don't want to go at it alone, You want to have varying skill sets and backgrounds because everyone will have their own role. In the beginning, when you start business, everyone is, all hands on deck. Everyone's kind of doing everything. But then you figure out what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are, and you kind of form your own lanes, so to speak, and you kind of take control of your role in the company. So you want each individual to have a different background so that they can contribute in a unique way.
And you really do, like Chloe said, you have to be really, really careful with who you let into your business. I mean, it could sound like a good idea to go into business with your best friend, but there's very few times where at the end of the day, 3 years down the road, that you're still going to have that relationship. So you really have to determine who this person is that you do want to be in a kind of like a long-term relationship with.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many horror stories of things just going awry, even between family members, even between friends. So the biggest thing is just trust first and foremost. You have to have so much trust between each of you, but also just communication. You have to constantly be communicating. You will have problems that come up and issues that need to be fixed. You always just have to make sure that you are taking things on as a team and know that it's you all versus the problem instead of you versus you.
And the thing that I like about being in business with Chloe and Steve is like, we do get in fights and we do, get snappy at each other. But the good thing about them is we are so close that we can get over it in 2 seconds. So we don't take everything so personally. We kind of just, we look at it as business and set it aside from our personal lives, which is very important.
And it can be very hard to do.
Yes.
So you have to have all of the hard conversations you have to have with your potential partners going into it. Like, hey, what happens if one of us wants to leave? Or, you have to have all of those conversations up front.
Number 3 is to save and set aside funds to start your company. So we are very fortunate and lucky to have done this on our own. But sometimes that's not always the case. So here's the thing. I think that people look at what they want to do in the future and they get so excited about it that they quit their full-time jobs and just go head on. 2 to 3 months down the road, they realize, this is going to take a few years to build up. I'm kind of screwed. I have to go back and get another job. So just make sure that you are still kind of secure while you're kind of formulating this other business and this other dream business so that you can still have a little bit of an income while you're creating it and starting that business, because every business needs funds to start, obviously.
And I think the majority of businesses also start out as a side hustle. And that's the thing. You have to have that main stream of income while you're figuring it all out, because there's a big chunk of time where you're not going to be bringing in any profit. It's all spending at the start.
Definitely.
Next step is to find lawyers to help you in all legal aspects, and this will keep you protected all around from the start. So this is super important when starting a company. There's so many little things here and there that you're going to want to, trademark your intellectual property when you can and form your operating agreement with your partners. There's a long list of things that if you can keep yourself buttoned up from the very start, you run into so many less problems down the line.
And I will say, we've had a few lawyers. I think we've finally found one that we're going to be with for quite some time. But if we were to go back, I would have told ourselves to look for someone that believes in our company and really knows the potential. Because if you have a lawyer that is doing your work on the side and working for like a huge firm, doesn't really have time for your business, things are going to get missed. You're not going to be set up like you should be set up for the future. So I would say look for a lawyer that is just as passionate as you are and really sees your business going somewhere and believing in it.
Totally.
So number 5 is to find a mentor. Growing up, our dad has always been a very big businessman. He's an entrepreneur himself. So we've been very fortunate to have our dad on our side. And I'm probably on a call with him every single day just because he has so much great insight. And he's been through so many experiences throughout business and situations that we don't even necessarily know about yet. So it's really cool to be able to have someone that you can lean on like that and trust.
Yeah, someone who has tons of experience, who's really seen it all, but more importantly, someone who has the right intentions. Obviously, it's our dad and he is just wanting to help us in every way that he can. But a lot of people, I think, can come across, quote unquote mentors who may want something from them or kind of just want it to be whatever they say goes. So you have to also be very particular and careful when you start working with a mentor, just to be sure upfront what everyone's expectations are, because I'm sure that there are situations where maybe they want a certain percentage of equity in your company, and maybe that's not the worst thing in the world if they're providing a ton of value, but it's just something to talk about upfront.
Totally.
Next step, number 6, is to create and research your name. So you first of all obviously want to make sure that nobody has the same name or anything close to it, and you want to make sure that your name is communicating your vision, your brand, and your why.
Right. So for balance, we decided to go with balance because we each feel like that is a word that we connect with so well. For me, I have been up and down with an eating disorder and being too strict on myself with food and all of that. So finding my balance in life, I've been able to be so much happier. Chloe has her own story with balance.
I think it's just one of those things where everyone is so different. We've all got different shapes and sizes. We have all got different stories. And for each individual, their own balance looks different. Their own version of healthy and happy looks different. And so we felt like balance was just a really universal term that could just equal, being happy in life.
Yes, totally.
So you'll want to figure out your name, make sure no one has it, and then you will utilize your lawyer to register that name and hopefully own it.
Right. So that's step 7, register that name. It will take about a year for it to actually go through and be copyrighted. But it is so worth it. You want to be buttoned up as best as you can. And that's one of the best ways. I've had countless stories that I've heard about people formulating their business name and then they don't even register it. 2 years down the line, they have to change it and create a whole new brand.
That's really tough.
It's really, really tough, especially when you spend so much time with that name and that brand alone. So registering that name. Next
up, you're going to want to create your logo. So you figured out your name, and then how can you take that name and translate it and, again, communicate your brand through a very simple, recognizable logo. So you'll want to first, like I said, picture, when you think of balance, what does that look like? Or when you think of whatever the company name is, what does that look like? It doesn't always have to include the name. It doesn't have to include the letters, but you have to consider what communicates your brand, and then what is something that when people see that on a pair of pants or on a purse or whatever it may be, they'll recognize it as your brand.
Definitely.
So it has to be unique. It can't be, stepping on the toes of other logos or companies. So you'll want to just get creative and explore different avenues with that.
Step number 9, when you're done creating that logo, be sure to register it just like your name, because again, same issues can arise in the future. Number 10 is to actually form your corporation within the state that you're in. So I've done this for, 3 or 4 businesses that I've created in the past, and it's actually very, very simple. You just need to be sure to click the right answers because there's so many different things. You could be manager managed, you can be partner, there's just so many different things. So be sure you have someone by your side that actually knows what they're doing, because it's hard to navigate yourself unless you do a pretty extensive amount of research. So fortunately, we have our controller, Tyler, who is very familiar with these types of things. So he was able to help us form this corporation. We did an LLC, but we have transitioned into an S Corp. That just is something that helps save with taxes and everything. It's very smart to do that in the future. But again, that is definitely Tyler's expertise. He's our CPA, controller, all of that. So he was able to navigate us all through this.
And so many people, when starting out their small business, they do go with LLC.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if it's just personally, like your personal fitness brand, you did that as an LLC. So everything we've done started out that way.
Right. So you honestly, I think I started it in Indiana. You go to indianabiz.gov or something, and you click form corporation, and there you go. You're on your way to forming your own business.
Next step, number 11, is to form your operating agreement between you and your partners, or if it's just you, even for yourself. This will require a lawyer, someone who is going to have to get very familiar with you and your relationship with your partners and things like that. And this is the time where you have those really hard conversations like, what if I want to sell my portion of the company and leave? What if we...
Voting.
Voting. What if we have this big blow up and we all want to part ways? You talk about those things that you think will never happen, but...
Just to be safe.
Yeah.
You never know.
And lawyer will tell you, I've seen this happen more times than not. So it really is just to protect everyone involved and to protect your company. Anytime that you're getting a lawyer involved, you have to look at it as, we're just protecting ourselves in the future. We're doing this to make us stronger, not because there's any level of distrust or anything like that. It's really just to protect you and have you all on the same page moving forward.
Right. And lawyers, of course, they're very expensive, but trust me, it's so worth it down the line. You don't want to be in any sort of trouble in a year or two because you didn't want to spend the money. And then also with the operating agreement, that is something that the banks will want to see when you do open up your account with them, your business account. So be sure you have that before you go to the bank and open that account.
And that's something to touch on that you probably have heard us talking about from step 1, but the two people that you really want to have involved, even if you're just consulting with them from the start, is some form of an accountant and a lawyer, because you want to be, like we keep saying, buttoned up from the beginning. You want to be legally compliant and you want to make sure that you're not getting yourself into any trouble down the road.
Yes, definitely. Because audits happen and you want to be prepared when those types of things arise. Number 12 is to create your website. There's so many different ways to do this, but I will say outsourcing is huge, which we'll get into here in a second. But if you aren't good at those types of things, don't be afraid to hire it out and create something that is worth people looking at. So for a website, I think that we created it at first, but of course, we've grown so much that we finally were able to outsource and have someone else design a bomb website. But you know what? You don't need to spend all that money at the start. You can go on to, I think an easy one is squarespace.com. That's what I used to do in the past, like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Super easy templates, very easy to navigate, and it doesn't really cost that much money. So creating a website, huge.
I will say on that note, and you're going to hear us, like Taylor said, talk about outsourcing in a bit, but at the start, you really, money is tight and you want to be able to learn and do as many things as you possibly can. So first step in that, in being, an owner and managing it, is to do everything that you possibly can and give it your all. But as you transition into a different phase of your business, that's when you're going to start outsourcing and leaving things to the experts who are going to do it better and faster. And that's when your time becomes much more valuable and sparse.
Right.
But
So
at the start, you definitely want to be doing everything yourself and really learning all of it.
yes, you definitely want to know how to do everything. That's why Steve, he's not on this podcast right now or on the past, 5 or 6, because he is learning the operations inside and out, because he wants us to be completely secure from day one. He wants to know exactly what's going on. So that is super important, is to know how you want to know how to be able to do things. Even if things go south in the future, you want to be able to say, I started that and I know how to do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, you know how to do every single step along the way and sit in every chair.
Yep.
You're going to start out sweeping the floors of your garage, which is your warehouse, and then you're going to be printing labels, and then you're going to be packaging orders, and you want to do all those things. That is so valuable for you. And no one is, above that. That is the most valuable thing that you can learn, is every single step in the process.
And the good thing about that is no one can take away that knowledge ever. No one built this for you too. It's a good thing to know in the back of your mind that you freaking did this. And as you guys know, if you do have a brick and mortar store, definitely start researching e-commerce, because I truly do believe that it's a huge part of this world and it's only getting bigger.
and your operating costs and everything are so much lower with e-commerce, and your potential to make sales in a day. I mean, we even experienced, like we talked about in one of the last podcasts, in the pop-up shop, you're just limited by physical space and time. No matter how many people show up, you still have those limits, whereas online, your only limit is really how much you can produce.
Totally, right.
So
it's huge.
Yeah, our growth is definitely attributed to being online versus in person.
Totally.
Next step, if you are providing a product over a service, you'll want to find a designer. So this has to be someone that you can communicate with directly and express your vision and your ideas. Not everyone is super artistic and can just, put their thoughts onto paper. So the designer is really someone who's helping you communicate your vision to a product.
Right, and we're really, really lucky to have Chloe. I think she's a savant in this industry, and it's so funny because this is a skill that she used to have ever since she was young, but I feel like her vision in her life she felt like she was going to do more of the business route, but throwing her back into her creative self, she's really just like exploded in, I don't know, your creative side of your brain. So we're really lucky to have her, but that is pretty rare to have, a chief level, a C level, be the designer. So be sure to really find someone that aligns with your vision and exactly what you want with your brand, because it's huge.
I think ideally that this would be a person that's more long-term too, because I know people sometimes work with a designer, remotely, and they just like have them do kind of one-off designs. But whenever you're communicating, like I keep going back to this, but when you're communicating your vision to the world, that's such a huge role. And the more that someone can be involved and the longer time they spend in your company, the easier it will be to kind of have that communication.
Funny story, actually. When we started working with this designer, and I don't know why we did. We just honestly thought, like, we didn't have anyone that has ever done this before on our side, like, as a friend. So we were like, oh, people, they outsource designers, like, let's try it. So we did it, and he created design after design after design, and we just weren't aligning at all. We weren't communicating together very well, and it just wasn't our vision. So we could have launched 6 months earlier, maybe 8 months earlier with this design, but you guys, first impressions to your company are everything. Like, don't take the easy way out. If it's going to take a year or two to get that perfect product out to people, it's so worth waiting, because your quality is everything. It's everything. So be sure to keep a hold of that vision, and don't take the easy way out, because it'll be worth it. It'll be worth the wait.
There's no reason to rush. Like, first impressions are so important, and you can never get them back. If you mess up in your first launch because you were rushing, you're going to have a group of people who will say, I won't go back there because they've lost my trust, and so they've lost my business.
Totally, right. Number 14 is to find a manufacturer or manufacturers. So we have manufacturers in China and Spain and Turkey and all of that, but a lot of people do start off with just one manufacturer, and there's a lot of ways to do this. We fortunately had a route where we found someone who found someone who found someone, like all the stars aligned. We worked our ass off to find this person, and it happened. But a lot of people, we've heard of companies having to go to China to go to
the market.
The market. Find manufacturers there. There's places online. I've heard of this place called Alibaba.com where a lot of people go. We've never used that, but I think that's a great starting point. But it does take a lot of research to find the right manufacturer. Just be sure that they're trustworthy. If you do have to take a flight to China to meet these people in person, do it. I would highly recommend, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into when you send hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars over to China.
Yeah, you're going to want to develop that relationship. And I do know some people that do this domestically when they start out. So you'll want to, if you do end up producing in the US or somewhere in America, just know that it's going to be so much more expensive, but you're not paying these huge shipping and import fees. but you might have a little bit more control and comfortability with someone who is in the same country or region as you.
Yeah.
So that's another route that you could go, is just do it domestically and know that your profit margins are going to be much lower until you're able to then outsource it and kind of maybe have a bigger inventory.
Right. And make sure when you do use different manufacturers, no matter where they are, that they're complying with being ethical to their employees. That's huge for us. We would never work with a manufacturer that gives us, maybe a better price for an unethical practice for their business. So make sure that that's something you really want to stand by, because it's important to the future of your business and important to your brand.
That's huge. Step 15 is to then create your product based off of your why. So you'll see that that is a super common theme throughout all of these, is that it always is going to come back to your why, your cornerstones, and your values. So if your product is, so say your why and your values are to bring a quality product to the market, but then your product doesn't speak for itself that way, there's a disconnect there. So you always want to make sure that your designing and your products and everything are just further communicating that mission.
The next step, number 16, is to develop your marketing strategy. This one is very, very important to your business. So if you guys don't really feel like you have that knowledge yourselves, don't be afraid to outsource it to others who are experts in this field. So of course, we're going to talk about social media marketing, because that has been the most powerful thing to us and to balance, as well as our growth. So make sure that you do dive into the social media marketing. Even if you don't know much about it, again, hire it out, go to workshops, learn as much as you can, because social media is so freaking powerful.
And it's another thing with e-commerce. It goes hand in hand, but it also isn't going anywhere. It's just getting more and more prevalent and powerful. And there is a lot to do. Even just with an Instagram page, you can communicate so much. So we always have been, from the very first day, so intentional about every single thing that we put out into those networks.
Right. So, we could honestly make a whole podcast out of social media marketing, which I do think we should get into. So let us know. Hit up the Balance Show on Instagram. Let us know if that's something that is of value to you guys, and we'll definitely dive into that.
Totally. Number 17, this is kind of circling back to what we were mentioning before about outsourcing, but 17 is to determine which roles you can do yourself and which need to be hired out. So, for example, we did picking and packing ourselves for quite a while, and then we eventually started getting help with that. And then now, 2 years later, we do have a team of people who come in and do that for us while we are focusing on other things. So at the start, you are going to be doing the hard labor just as much as you're going to be doing the executive level things.
Right. You want to get down and dirty as much as you can. You're going to have very, very late nights, long work hours. You're going to be sacrificing a lot. But trust me, if you guys are trying to build a monster company, these are just things that you're going to have to sacrifice and do and get over. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're going to work your ass off every single day and night, but it'll pay off. Like, imagine 10 years down the line working that hard every day. You're going to be in an amazing place with your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll need help with that eventually. Like I said, your accountant and your lawyer, those are non-negotiable. You need those for sure. And then you also are definitely going to want a customer service representative. You will not be able to handle those emails and even those DMs and stuff forever. So you will want to bring someone on to help with customer service.
And for us, like, there's people that obviously say so many nice things, but when the negatives hit, when you own the business, it hits you 10 times harder than a customer service representative who really doesn't have very much connection with the brand like you do. So hiring that out is going to be so big for your mental health as well.
Because emotional fatigue is real. And it's so draining to feel so defensive all the time, because you're always going to have someone that has something negative to say. But if you have someone helping you with that and you're not having to face it every day,
you can start creating the big picture ideas and not get so burnt out.
And what we do now with that, and we've learned the hard way, we have our customer service representatives make a list of complaints every week, and we go through them and we say, okay, it seems like our pants may have been a little bit too small this collection. Let's make changes. So we now analyze our data in a different way than looking at it case by case. It's like, okay, what's the general consensus? What's the problem that people are having? We always want to solve them and communicate that, but we don't necessarily have to be dealing with people one-on-one all
Every
the
single
time.
day. Right. So don't be afraid to, when you're not an expert, don't be afraid to outsource things, because it's going to take your business to the next level without taking so much of your own brain power. It's very, very important. The next thing is, when starting to build out your team, hire slowly. Ask them the uncomfortable, hard questions up front. That way there's no surprises. 3 months down the road, they know exactly what to expect. You know what to expect out of them, and there's just a straight arrow path.
And keep in mind, don't be so hard on yourself and so strict. You really won't know if someone is going to be a perfect fit until they start working for you. You can't, have 10 rounds of interviews and think that that's going to make it a successful partnership.
Right.
You really do just have to, it's like a guessing game.
It is.
You ask the questions, they're going to answer, and if they feel right, they can start. And it's really just a trial period to see, is this a good fit for both of us?
Right. And there may be people that interview really well, or there may be people that interview really bad. So you really have to take a lot of different steps to find the right fit. And if you do end up, after 3 interviews, having to hire them for 3 weeks and kind of test them out, that's a really good play. But honestly, you're not going to know someone's work ethic, attitude, skills, any of that for 3 months. So it's really just trial and error. For me, it's a feeling as well. When you feel connected to someone, it, for me, is kind of a no-brainer. But you still do have to ask the hard questions.
Totally. Next step, number 19, we're getting there.
We are.
We're almost there. Next step is to focus heavily on making your workplace a space where your employees want to be. So this is from 2 different areas. One is obviously the physical aspect of it. So you want to invest in a nice space, preferably with natural light, somewhere that has just a good community feel to it. It's comfortable. It's a nice space that you want to go work. Snacks,
coffee,
drinks,
candy,
everything. You want to just provide, and it's the little things that really make a huge difference. And I think that I learned that, working with my past companies, that just the snacks. I'm like, thank you. You care
free
about
snacks,
me.
Bitches.
Yeah. So we definitely wanted to incorporate that into our workspace, have nice furniture and just a nice decor generally.
Yes, definitely. So that's, the physical aspect. Also your culture as a whole, in terms of your people. We've experienced this many times, but if you have one bad weed in the bunch, it will create a negative, toxic workplace. You have to make sure that everyone there is happy, positive, willing to do the hard shit, because if you have one person that isn't, it's going to feed into everybody else.
And that's a really good point. In a startup, you really should only have people around you that are willing to wear multiple hats. Someone, in a startup, your job is never really over. If you're done with your work for the day, you should be willing to say, hey, how can I help operations today? How can I help you today? You really need to be surrounded by a team that's willing to do it all.
Right. And it's hard to find people like that, but in a way, a lot of people, if they do see the bigger vision, they will be willing to kick butt every day.
Yep. So your culture plays a huge part in that. And just make sure it's somewhere that's fun. Don't be afraid to joke and laugh with your people. But when it's time to get down to business, you do have to have a level of professionalism that's like, hey, it's time to work.
Right. And I think that we are still growing in that area. Versus when we started, we have grown a lot as leaders and bosses, but just know you're not going to be perfect, especially at the start of your business. It's a learning curve. But as a boss and as a leader, always be sure to be researching, reading books, listening to podcasts on how you can better yourself as a leader.
Yeah, totally. And to note on that, anytime there's people involved in any situation, communication is key, like we always say. So if you have a weird feeling, if you had a weird conversation, you should always address things up front, nip them in the bud, speak to people in private. You don't want to ever embarrass someone, but if you ever have something happen that rubs you the wrong way, just address it immediately. And 99% of the time, it's resolved instantly.
Totally.
But communication is everything. When you let things build up,
it creates tension and like harbors feelings forever. So you always want to make sure to squash it from the front and just communicate from there.
Totally.
Number 20 is to prepare your warehouse for your incoming product, even if it is a tiny garage.
Yes.
So you want to, tell them where we started?
Yeah, we started in our garage. So it was, I think, like 250 square feet, something like that. It was a 2-car tiny garage. And we filled it with racks, and we had these foldable white tables, and we had our printers on them, and that's where we started, and we were so proud of it, and I'm still proud of it.
We were like, hell yeah, we're in the office today, like storying.
We got bins today.
We had a day in the life video where we're like at Chloe's dining room table, like having a meeting and designing, and then we go downstairs to the warehouse, the garage. We send out an order. It's like just so different.
But it's a good testament, and like you see that in a lot of startups. You don't have to be spending all your money in the fanciest office and the fanciest warehouse. It really starts with you and your people and your brain power. It's not about what your warehouse looks like.
Absolutely.
So you can work from home. You can work at your dining table as long as you have to until you're ready to graduate to that next level.
Right. So don't like take this huge leap without having the funds to do so. It's okay to grow gradually and grow with your income.
Yeah, I think that's a pride thing. Like, I want to have an office right away. But if you can put that aside and not let your pride run you, but just be frugal with your money as you're starting out or forever, that'll pay off for sure.
And it's also a good story for you. Like, we'll never forget those times, the hard times, quote unquote, because it was like grind time every single day on the daily tasks. So you'll never forget when you do start off like that. So
and you'll have so much pride. Like we did that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, next step, 21, is to get a hold of your finalized product samples as quickly as you possibly can so that you can start generating your marketing content. We've had many launches where we didn't get our stuff until almost right before. So we were working off of just this one small sample for so long.
Literally, guys, since like last collection, since the Aura collection, which was a year and a couple months into our business, we've only had freaking small size samples. So that's why you've only seen me in these product
small
shots.
models. And that's so hard because that's not communicating our brand well. So I wish that we would have known this back then to make this a huge priority. Like, hey, we need 20 sets in all sizes. We need to be able to promote that. But if you don't, that's not common with working with manufacturers. They're used to just giving you smalls because most people are just modeling smalls. So you need to establish that from the start. Whatever your product, whatever your market is, get those samples ahead of time so that you can promote it and generate that content. So number 22 is to just always remember that you are representing your company now. You're so much more than just one person. You and anyone on your team is constantly representing your new company. So professionalism goes a long way from day one. Anytime that you're communicating either personally or from the brand, whether you're DMing someone or you're answering a customer service email, always be professional, always be kind, and just make sure that you're again, communicating your brand in a positive way.
Number 23, we kind of hit this a few points before, but don't be afraid to outsource any crucial task that an expert can do quicker and better than you. So again, a graphic designer, a photographer, a videographer. I think we just now found the right photographer that we've been looking for, but any other time for literally a year, we were taking our own photos with our own cameras. And while that's so good and you can control that so well, you do want to be sure to find people that align with your brand, that do good work for you, that you can kind of put that into their hands now, and you can move on to the next big thing. You don't want to always have to micromanage every single little thing that you do. Otherwise, you're not going to grow as fast.
And when you're ready to financially invest more into your marketing, those are the things that are going to take your brand to the next level, because you have all of these creative minds working together to contribute and, convey your vision in a new way. And that's another point with these things. When you're working with these creatives, give them a little bit of space to do their thing.
Yeah.
Everyone that we work with in the creative realm, we say, here's what we want to convey. You figure out how you'd like to do that. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we don't like it, but they can offer a lot of value in that regard. They're not just robots. They have their own creative minds.
Right. And like at the start, their creative mind and your creative mind, they're not going to mesh. I mean, that's just how it is. But over time, your guys are going to run with synergy, and it's just going to be like a no-brainer. They're going to know exactly what your vision is and what they want to portray in that content. So again, don't be afraid to outsource these important things like ads, videos, anything that you do to make your company grow to the next level. But just when you're ready. You don't need that at the very, very start. But when you're ready, don't be afraid to do that. Number 24 is to dress up every day. So no matter if I'm working from home or whatever the case may be, I feel like we are always trying to dress up. Because that makes us feel better. It makes me work harder. When I feel good, I honestly operate at a higher level than when I'm in sweats every single day.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because when you're working from home, especially at the start, because you probably will be, it's so easy to roll out of bed and like not brush your hair and stay in your pajamas and just kind of sloth through the day. But if you kind of wake up with the attitude like, I'm going to start my day, this is my job and my career, and even though you may not leave the house and you could be wearing athletic clothes, they're not your pajamas. And you've brushed your hair and you've showered.
Yes.
And I think those are really a key thing to be able to perform at your highest level.
I really do think those little things matter. Like makeup, I just think that they make you feel like just ready to go.
Whatever it is, like whether it's just, for some people it may just be, taking a shower. Whatever it is, whatever your thing is that makes you feel like you're ready to take on the day. Our final step, which is number 25, and it is one of the most important things to do from the very, very start of your business, is to always treat your customers with respect, because being in business is a relationship with each and every one of your customers. Trust is important. Respect is important. You never want to have the impression that you're trying to get one over on your customers, or you're disrespecting them in any way, undermining them or their intelligence or, the things that they need. You always want to be treating them with the utmost respect. It's not the sense of the customer is always right. I think that is hard to live by, but you just always want to be treating them like you care about them, and you should care about them.
You should. If you're trying to create a company that's helping people in some way, like for us, we feel like we're providing a safe, positive community, as well as clothes that they feel like empowered and confident in. You should be able to stand by your product and be like, hey, this is going to help you, take it or leave it, but this is going to improve your quality of life in some way. So you really do have to care about your customer at the end of the day, because it should be honestly a huge backbone of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and you could not do anything without those people supporting you, whether they're supporting you as an individual or just as a business. And why would you take that for granted? You should treat those people with the utmost respect always.
Right, like no matter how big you get, every order is a person. Just remember that, because they deserve that quality attention.
Absolutely.
So those are our 25 steps that we've learned along the way. Again, we are about a year and a half into actually launching our very first launch. So these are things that we have found along the way, but even a year down the road, we're going to be learning more and more and more every single day. So we're not the experts, but this is just what we've found in our own journeys and in our own experiences, that hopefully these will be able to help you, because I wish that I had just one place to go to when I was starting my business. And there's so many places like that, but if you can just have one place to provide you with all the information you need, it's so big, because there's so much information out there that you can take.
And these are the things that you won't learn in school. This is what I studied, and none of this are things that I learned in school. Like, school gives you a really good foundation of knowledge, but it's not going to give you the real world experience that you need to be able to do this. So like Taylor said, we are by no means the experts, but these are just the things that we look back on our business when we formed it 2 years ago. These are the things that we've done since then that were successful for us.
Yeah, so we hope you guys like it. Let us know. We have an Instagram for this show. It's called @TheBalanceShow. So if you guys want to DM us or comment on any photo, we'll be sure to get back to you. And this is just such an awesome way to communicate and like share our life experiences and journey. But in that, let us know what you guys want to hear from us. Give us a rating, a comment, subscribe to the show, and we look forward to doing this more.
One thing that we want to ask you guys is we'd like to have some special guests on our show. So if you guys can find some time, please send a DM to The Balance Show on Instagram. Tell us who you would like to see on the show and what you'd like us to talk about.
Yes, definitely. We want to do interviews, I think, every third or fourth podcast. I think it brings a unique perspective here. We have some names in mind, but we want to hear from you guys.
Totally.
So, anyways, we love you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Again, thanks for listening, and bye.
Bye.